fatigue, brain fog, headaches. I had a hypersensitivity to noise. It was really hard for me to be in the same room as my kids, which is, tough because you got young kids, you love them and you want to be with them. But I remember one morning my kids were playing Lego. They're in the same room. I had a box of Lego and I was just sifting through the box, trying to find the right piece of Lego. And it was so loud, I was almost yelling at them to shut up. But, I just had to leave the room because I couldn't tolerate the noise. I was having anxiety, as a lot of people do, because you're not sure what's wrong with you and what's causing all these symptoms. I was having nausea. There was about 10 symptoms I was getting. I can't remember them all, but I guess those are the main ones.
Hello and welcome to the CFS Health Recovery Podcast. I am your host, Toby Morrison. And in today's interview, we are so lucky to have Jop on the other end, who has recovered from chronic fatigue syndrome, and he's been so kind enough to come on and share his amazing journey with us. So Jop, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm thrilled to be here.
You did the program, that was great, and then you kind of departed and we hadn't really spoken since, and you're in our free information group too. And I was scrolling through there not too long ago and I see a comment from Jop Purnell and I was just like, what's he up to? And you were replying to someone who's really struggling at the moment, and you were just saying, don't give up. I've been where you've been. Now I'm fit and healthy. I think you said I walk 20,000 steps a day. I'm living again, and don't give up. And I just thought, wow. And I reached out to you and I was like, let's chat. I think you need to speak to the world needs to hear your story. So thanks for coming on. Really
happy to share it.
Yeah, super pumped.
Yeah, for sure.
So, if you can take us back 7-8 years ago when you first became ill, you said, you suffered for around almost 7 years. What was your life looking like?
Before I got sick?
Yeah.
So life was pretty good. I had 3 young kids, a happy family. I'd just got a good promotion at work, but that didn't quite turn out, unfortunately, because it was a new role in a new team in a new department that was set up prematurely. My team and I literally sat there for 6 months doing nothing, shuffling papers. So I was using the opportunity to get fit. I was on a big health kick. I was running 8Ks before work, and then I aimed to do 10,000 steps before I got to work. I'd go for a walk like 45 minutes around the city at lunchtime. I'd walk 20 flights of stairs for like a coffee break. So I was just getting as fit as possible. So life was going well, and then it crashed.
You were diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and probably something you had never thought of before. Before you went through this, you were living the high life, I guess, and really just not even thinking about this possibility. What was it like when you went through this process of, 1 minute you're a father of 3 kids, you're in business, you're running, you're pushing yourself, you're doing boot camps, you said you're going out drinking. What was it like where you hit rock bottom?
Yeah, it was really tough, and it was strange because I didn't know what was going on. I was going to my GP a couple of times a week with symptoms I couldn't explain. I got bronchitis initially. That's what triggered the ME or CFS. And I did a course of antibiotics, and that kind of cleared up the cold and flu symptoms, but I was still getting fatigued every day and didn't understand it. And I tried to go back to work, and my team kind of took one look at me and said, dude, you're not well. Go home, get better. And I never went back to work. So it was really hard. And after my GP sent me to do a whole lot of tests, blood tests and MRIs and chest ultrasounds and urine tests, and all the tests came back saying I was a really healthy human being. And then after seeing him a couple of times a week for maybe 2 months, he said, you're ticking all the boxes for chronic fatigue syndrome. So I was kind of lucky in that I had a GP that was able to diagnose it.
Totally. Some people are so dismissed. Like they go to a doctor and they're like, you're just making this up. It's all in your head. You just need to sweat it out. So the fact that you got a great doctor initially was the first point of call, really.
Yeah. So then I did once he told me I probably had chronic fatigue syndrome, but he said we can't officially diagnose that till it's been 6 months of chronic symptoms. I went home and Googled chronic fatigue syndrome and I was like, shit. This sucks. I remember for a while I was kind of waking up every day thinking, am I better or am I over this? This is before I knew about the chronic fatigue. And then it kind of dawned on me one day that I'm not just going to wake up and be better. This is it. My life has changed. And what's kind of weird is I was working in change management. So it's my job to engage people with change. So I knew I was facing a change.
How ironic.
Yeah, I didn't have much choice. Like I had to embrace it. It was a change forced upon me and I couldn't fight it. So I wouldn't say I embraced it, but I accepted it.
Wow, this is so interesting because I remember you were a really interesting client to work with because your attitude from the get-go was one of real curiosity and one of just like, tell me what I need and I'm going to go do it. Can we just track back just a second because this is gold? What were some of the symptoms that you're experiencing every day, when you were going through that process of seeing your GP 2 times a week?
Fatigue, brain fog, headaches. I had a hypersensitivity to noise. It was really hard for me to be in the same room as my kids, which is, tough because you got young kids, you love them and you want to be with them. But I remember one morning my kids were playing Lego. They're in the same room. I had a box of Lego and I was just sifting through the box trying to find the right piece of Lego. And it was so loud, like I was almost yelling at them to shut up. But, I just had to leave the room because I couldn't tolerate the noise. So I had to get myself some noise cancelling headphones. I was having anxiety, as a lot of people do, because you're not sure what's wrong with you and what's causing all these symptoms. I was having nausea. There was about 10 symptoms I was getting. I can't remember them all, but I guess those are the main ones.
Yeah, I think people can relate a lot. I think the main ones that most people experience is definitely the brain fog, that extreme fatigue, muscle aches and pains, and, sensitivities too. So funny that you're in change management. I could imagine if you're in change management, you're someone who thinks about opportunity versus the things that you can't control. So you got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, you're Googling stuff. What was your attitude? Did you believe for a moment that it wasn't possible that you could get better? What was your thought process like?
Yeah, well, I read up on the stats, I guess, and I was aware that only 5 to 10% of people make a recovery.
Well, that's what they say online. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was hopeful that I'd be in that 5 to 10%. I tried different things, tried naturopath and an exercise physiologist, and I did a different program which encouraged graded exercise therapy and cognitive brain therapy, which, obviously didn't help. They might have set me back a bit, but it was 2021 and the first half of 2022 when I was doing the program, I was pretty much bedbound and I hadn't been in that stage before. For the first 4 or 5 years, I'd been able to walk around for 20 minutes, which doesn't sound like much, but it's much more than being bedbound. Life wasn't super bad in those first 4 years, but then there was a year when it was really tough and I'd kind of resigned myself to being part of that 90% that wouldn't recover, and this is life. And I was depressed, obviously, but then found your program, and at first I was skeptical. Then I started looking at all the case studies you've got of people who have recovered, like this story we're doing now, and I was really encouraged by that. And once I got started in the program and understood what was required, then, like you said, I was just 100% committed and I wanted to change. And then, I started believing that I would be in that 5 to 10%. And every day I'm believing it more and more.
What were you skeptical about? Because I think when you go through the merry-go-round of doctor to doctor and practitioner to practitioner and you try one modality and then the next modality and the next modality, you're sick and tired of it. Like you just get to the point where you're just fed up. I know I was when I went through it. And, when I started helping people professionally with chronic fatigue syndrome and their recovery, I knew that was the first thing that everyone thought, oh, not another person to go and see. And it was always different when once they came in and they realized, oh, this guy's not a doctor and he's not just going to give me false hope. He's going to give me a proper plan. Like what were you initially skeptical about?
Well, I have to say I was lucky that I had a good GP who gave me a diagnosis. So I didn't see a lot of GPs. I saw a naturopath who didn't help me at all, just sold me a whole lot of vitamins that I didn't need. But my skepticism was, I guess, I didn't know that you could recover. I guess I was holding on to that cure versus recovery. So I was probably waiting for that magic pill that would come along that you could take to help you be cured. So I didn't know that you could slowly recover. So that was my skepticism, that you were saying, follow us and we'll get you there. But it didn't take me long to go through all your materials to realise that there's merit to what you're saying. And I jumped on board pretty quick. My attitude changed.
It did. Yeah, I do remember at the start you were unsure, it's like, is this going to work? Like, this is how bad I am right now. Like, what do I do? And it's really hard. And, I want to say to the people out there as well, there is a lot of misinformation in the online space, these statistics that you can read and hold on to and go, oh, shit. Does that mean there's only 10% of people who get it recover? And I just want to say that not everything's true online. You have to be very careful what you read and the stories that you read. there's subjectivity to everything. So please don't be disheartened if you're someone who has been reading lots of negative stuff online. That's just one person's story or one person's set of research, and it's not necessarily covering everything. So, Job, that is fascinating. The fact that you just said then, the difference was I was expecting maybe this is going to be a cure, or maybe the next thing I try will cure me, versus going, actually, there's things that I can do to help myself recover my health. You mentioned before we jumped on this call, we had a quick chat, and you mentioned New Year's Eve. Tell us what happened that night.
Yeah. So I just signed up to the program a week or two before then. I'd been going through all your materials, all your resources, learning, reading. So it was New Year's Eve. My wife had taken our kids out to a friend's house for a party. I didn't have the energy to do that, so I was home alone. I had a big glass of whiskey in my hand. I was drinking a lot, thinking that drinking would make me feel better at the end of the day, but I learned that has a reverse effect.
How are you feeling at that time? Just like probably totally overwhelmed and depressed.
Yeah. Depressed, certainly. So I was feeling really bad, and then I remember looking at my drink thinking, I don't even want this. I'm just drinking it because I was a drinker. And it kind of dawned on me that the changes that I need to make in order to change my health, starting with drinking. I won't say I went cold turkey, but I dramatically gave up drinking and noticed the differences right away. Felt so much better for it. So it was just, I had that moment of clarity. I realized that I needed to change my lifestyle, change my habits in order to change my health.
One of my favorite sayings, and I think you know this one, is if it's to be, it's up to me.
Yeah. And that was true. Yeah. I don't know if you remember, I had a whole lot of cards. I've got them here. All these cards with messages.
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
To myself.
Hold it up for a second. Let's just have a look, just so people can see at home, or I'll read them out.
Well,
just what have you got?
So here's what we were just talking about.
If you want things to change, you need to change. Yeah. Powerful. Be consistent, not perfect. The rewards will come. I even love it how you've numbered them. For the people who are listening on the podcast, Jock created these cards, and they're quote cards, but you use them as reminders every single day, didn't you?
Yeah, so I really like this one.
I love this one. Don't stress about things that are not important. What's the worst that can happen? Your health is your priority. Oh.
Yeah, so I got about 50 of these, and this, I guess, relates back to my career in change management. So I was a communications manager. I was like the one who would write the message or come up with the message that would engage people in the need to change. So I'm, I guess, a writer, and this was my strategy for change. Like, I would read through all these cards 2 or 3 times a day until the messages sunk in that, these are the changes you need to make. And I would keep reading them until they were implemented in my brain and I just knew what to do.
So good. For people who don't realize this is actually a form of brain retraining. It's a form of reframing and creating new neural pathways, which then creates the behavior to make the changes. Job, tell me what happened when you were reading these things out every day. And I know how committed you were back then. It's not just about reading some positive words, right? Like, this is what people don't understand. And we say this all the time. Chronic fatigue syndrome is not a mindset problem, right? Fully. It's a neurological, physical condition. But we say that mindset is very important because when we change our mindset, it changes our behavior. When we change our behavior, it changes our actions. And when we change our actions, it changes our results. What happened when you started to read those things every single day? I mean, I got to see it through the program, obviously. The people at home, what happened through this process?
Well, it was a slow process. So from a stage of being bedbound, I had to, have reminders for myself not to get up and what will happen if you do get up. And like this card, don't do anything, don't lift anything, ask for help. Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Right things at the right time. So, at that point, it wasn't about pushing yourself. It was about restoring energy when you're in stage 1 of recovery. You mentally rehearsing these powerful statements and really kind of getting to the zone of focus and commitment. What happened as you started to, really look at this and pay attention to what you were focusing on, really directing your energy? What happened on an action basis? Obviously at the start, you're in stage 1. So you just mentioned resting was really paramount at the start for you. But then as you started to get better, like, what were some of the behaviors that really helped change and help you move forwards in your recovery?
I guess being really disciplined with my action. I knew I had to sit, and not just sit, but sit still. So I was watching a lot of TV, a lot of Netflix. I think I clocked Netflix. I watched everything. I understood what I needed to do. So I knew I had to sit still. I knew I had to ask for help and not be ashamed to ask for help. I knew I had to have a better diet and keep hydrated and get sleep. So what happened was over time, my symptoms started decreasing and I started feeling better and things weren't so bad. And this is 6 months of hard work. Once the symptoms come down, then your energy starts to grow. As I kind of went through different stages of like finding my baseline, then sticking to my baseline. And I think it took me about 3 months to properly find my baseline and be able to get through a day without fatigue, which was really hard work. And then, stick to that for months on end of basically doing nothing, just sitting still, eating,
being
drinking
consistent.
water.
Yeah. When you say doing nothing, you mean just doing nothing that was not conducive of recovery.
Yeah. So I couldn't read a book. That just gave me headaches. So all I could do was watch TV, really. I was fine watching TV. I know that some people can read books, but they can't watch TV. So, ME is different for everyone. I embraced watching TV, and that was my, method of coping, of survival. Like I would find really good drama shows on TV and lose myself in those, watch really good drama TV for a few hours at a time. So I don't have to think about that I can't do anything.
What did you do to build up? So over time, you started at a pretty low level, obviously. And I know those first 3 months in the program were probably the most difficult. In fact, like it felt, from memory, just from remembering your posts and stuff, like it was hard and it was overwhelming. And it was like, how long do I have to do this for? What were some of the other things that you learned through the program that were most helpful? What you said before, baseline was one of them.
So diet, I think, is massive. So avoiding alcohol and sugar and caffeine and dairy and gluten. I actually just went and did a blood test to see if I've got the celiac disease for gluten intolerance, because my wife is a celiac and I know my mum carried the gene. So I was curious to know if I was celiac and maybe if that was part of the cause of me getting chronic fatigue initially.
For the people who don't know, we're really big on nutrition. We're really big on food as fuel. People don't understand the importance of it. Fueling your body every single day. When you're fighting virus infection, when your body's really trying to protect itself, your brain and your body, you need to give it the energy and the sustenance to provide you with the healing foundations. What were some of the key things around your nutrition that helped you the most? Was it eating regularly?
Yeah. Eating regularly, healthy foods. So, I guess up until 3 months into the program, I think I was still drinking a few cups of tea a day, and I cut out that tea, that caffeine, just went to herbal tea. But eating, I really got a lot out of that. Food is fuel, is energy. That really resonated with me. So I ate a lot, and I was eating every couple of hours. I'd have a little trolley next to me when I sat on the couch. I had jars of nuts and chickpeas and healthy foods. And, I found I actually started putting on weight from what I was eating, but I knew I was feeling better. And I believed that it was doing the right thing for me, even though I was putting on weight that I didn't want. I was already overweight. I'd learned that down the track, when I was starting to recover, I would be able to lose the weight. The first 6 months of doing the program, I probably put on another 6 kilos just from eating more nutritious food. But since then, I peaked at 87 and now I'm down to 77. So I've been
77 kilos for our American friends, not pounds.
Yeah. That's right. We're on the metric system. Yeah. So I'm losing weight and I'm thrilled about that. So diet has been massive. Journaling was really important. I still do that every day. I like the mantra of you're either recovering or you're learning, and learning from your mistakes. If you get fatigue, that it's okay. You figure out what caused it and resolve to do better going forward. If you stood for 5 minutes instead of 4 minutes and that caused fatigue, then the next day work on 4 minutes and stick to it, which is a lot easier said than done. It's really hard work and requires a lot of discipline, but that's what will get you there, I guess. So diet, journaling, good sleep, getting consistent sleep. I go to bed and try and have lights out by 10 o'clock. My wife likes to watch a bit of TV in bed, so I just slip on my eye mask and I'm out. Lights out for me, conversation over. So I'm really consistent with that.
I know what you looked like when you first joined the program, and you look like Superman now. When we jumped on Zoom this morning, I was like, you look like Clark Kent. Like the hair and the skin, like look how, yeah, exactly. He's got the glasses on now. Yeah, they're perfect. But, you're a picture of health now. It's unbelievable. And that's the hard thing, to paint that picture of like how bad you were when you first joined the program. There's a transition period, Jock, from stage 1 in recovery where you're really suffering and the symptoms are really prevalent. They're there all the time. It's very hard to find pockets of joy and energy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a transition period, though, where you switch from focusing on symptoms and doing less to actually expanding your baseline and increasing your capacity over time. Can you speak to that for a second? Because, many people think that they just need to do less is more all the time, and that actually can hold them back if they stay there for too long. And I know you went through that change.
Yeah. So I remember there was another great little message from you, which I know I've got on one of my cards somewhere, but what got you through stage 1 won't get you through stage 2.
What got you here won't get you there. Exactly.
Yeah. So I got used to my routine of what got me through, finding my baseline and sticking my baseline until symptoms came down. And it actually took a bit of courage to start expanding my activity and doing a bit more. I had some apprehension about it because you don't want to crash again, obviously. That's everyone's worst fear in this program. But it wasn't so bad. So when you do things like having a good diet and getting good sleep and keeping hydrated and avoiding stress and sticking to your baseline, then your symptoms come right down. And if I did get fatigued, it would be maybe I'd feel sick for an hour or so, and that was it. And then I started thinking, well, that's not so bad. I can handle that. I can still go to work.
Energy dips, exactly. They're not crashes, they're just energy dips, exactly.
Yeah. So then, I went through the little by little becomes a lot. So I think it was from June last year, every fortnight, every second Thursday, I increased what I do by 10%. So that started out from being able to stand for maybe 2 minutes to, now I can stand for an hour or an hour 20. So I still have my limits. I'm not fully recovered. I still need to sit down. I can stand for like an hour in the morning, a little bit longer in the afternoon and evening, but I need to sit for half an hour to recharge in between that. But in that time I'm sitting, I can do some reading or writing. So I really hated missing a day, losing a day of when you can improve yourself and be productive. That was really one of the hard things for me with this illness because I'm an active person and like to get stuff done. One of the other messages was don't focus on your symptoms, focus on your recovery, and don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can do, which is, again, easier said than done because what you can do is really small. I kept really positive and took that as wins. Like every fortnight I can do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. From going from having to not just sit, but sit still and hardly move to now like every morning I'm doing 3 sets of 30 squats or lunges and I'm doing 3 sets of 30 push-ups every second day. And my aim is to walk 20,000 steps a day, and I'm doing that probably 4 or 5 times a week. So, little by little, it's becoming a lot. And I know I've still got a long way to go.
Yes and no. I mean, that's pretty wild, man, to go from bedbound, a year ago, in a pretty desperate state, to be honest. And now you're going out for 20,000 step walks and you're training like a normal person would, if even more than a normal person does sometimes,
Yeah, well, 20,000 steps in a day, not per walk. 20,000 steps a walk is a long way. I'm not doing that. My goal for each day is to get through the day. I'm kind of like reverse roles with my wife now. She's working and I'm doing a lot of the cooking and cleaning and getting kids to school.
Full-time dad.
Yeah. So my aim is to get through every day, do the cooking and cleaning and get kids to school and pick them up and help them with homework. And then in the evening, still have the energy to go for an hour power walk. Life is good now.
So good, man. I'm bloody almost tearing up. Almost crying. Don't make me do this. Don't make me cry.
But I know I still have my limits. So recently, or last time I expanded my baseline, I can do like an hour 20 in the evening. I did a walk that went for an hour 15 minutes. I think it was 7.2 kilometers. But normally I've been doing about 6.5 Ks. So just doing an extra kilometer or an extra 10 or 15 minutes. And I felt it the next day. I felt fatigued and I didn't have the energy to go and do a power walk that night. But one of the great learnings is knowing your limits and knowing when you've done too much and knowing that when you need to pull back. I don't want to go back to where I was a year ago. So if that means not going for a walk for a day or two, then
not a big deal. Now for you as well, now that you've progressed to this new level, really stage 3, integrating back into life. Healthy people don't walk for an hour every day. Healthy people don't go to the gym every day. They have rest days in between. And that's how you need to start to see it now, because you progress so far. And knowing that that's normal tiredness too, after a gym session, the next day you will feel a bit tired. I spoke to a friend the other day who's never experienced chronic fatigue syndrome. And it's just like, oh my God, my legs are so sore from yesterday's session. Oh, my arms are so sore from my surf 2 days ago. Like maybe I'll surf in like 2 more days. You know what I mean? So it's amazing, man. Like you've just come such a long bloody way from where you were. And I think it's just so inspiring for people, because a lot of people don't have hope, and a lot of people are thinking that there's nothing that they can do. And a lot of people in the situation that you were in a year ago are still waiting for that magic pill. They're still hoping that there's something out there, over there, that's going to magically come and fix them overnight. What would you like to say to them, if you'd like to depart some wisdom?
You can recover. You can improve. You can feel better if you make some changes. And you need to, I guess, look at how you're living your life, your habits, your diet, your sleep, your hydration, stress, mindset. Yeah, definitely. Positive mindset. And if you can put all those things together, you'll start to recover. It's really hard. And I guess I want to say that I'm fortunate in that I haven't had to go back to work, that I am not a single parent who has to look after kids. I'm fortunate and very thankful that I've got a really supportive family who've looked after me and helped me to recover. And I know not everyone has that, and that's hard. And I can't imagine how hard it would be for people in that situation. But if you can make some changes, you can feel better.
What's your advice for people who are just having a bad day? You know what I mean? Like they're working on their recovery. There might be even people in our program who have been going good for a couple of weeks, and then, a couple of bad days happen. What's your advice to them to get through this bad day?
Just take it one day at a time. I'm sure I've got that written on one of my cards somewhere. One day at a time, one step at a time. You have a bad day, that's okay. Just resolve to do better the next day. And, if you've had a bad day, what caused your bad day? How can you avoid that going forward? If it's stress at work, hopefully there's a way you can avoid being so stressed. You can get more sleep, you can drink more water, you can rest more. Have your own little methods of staying calm and positive, whether it's your breathing exercises or a little bit of exercise or reading a book or watching a TV show. Do something that will help you to get out of your negative mindset and start again the next day.
This is gold, by the way. Thank you so much for being here and just sharing this on behalf of everyone who's listening right now. I think they're so thankful. You are in change management. Your expertise is change management. I feel like acceptance of one person's current struggle is possibly the hardest thing to change. You got to the point where you were able to accept where you're at in a pretty bad state. And that was really the pivotal moment for you to go to the lowest bottom and kind of work your way back up. Have you got any advice for people who are just so struggling to accept where they're at? Like they're just not accepting where they're at. They're beating themselves up all the time and they're pushing themselves too hard, or they're in self-denial. You said to me before the call, I just got to the point, Toby, where I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Have you got any advice for people to accept where they're at?
I guess my question would be, how bad do you want to change? If your life is really shit, if you're feeling like shit every day, if you want to change that, then you need to change. You need to look at yourself and figure out what you can change to make your health better, to avoid stress, to live a better life. How can you improve yourself? I'm just saying, you got to actually do it. And for me, it was my cards. It was giving myself a message, not one message, but 50 messages every day to embrace the change, talk myself through how I will get through the change and be the change. Because I know change is hard for a lot of people. People are very resistant to change, but sometimes change is forced upon you. Like when you got sick, nobody wanted that change, but you can't really fight it. If you fight it, you end up worse. So change. You need to look at yourself and change. And also have the courage to ask for help. If you've got family and friends, there's always people that are offering help, but we're always too stubborn to say, yes, I need help. People just say, no, I'm fine. I can get through it. But if people are offering to help you cook a meal or pick your kids up after school, then just say, yes, thank you. Bloody hell, that would be awesome. Be grateful that people are helping you and take it. Take the help.
Almost like taking the guilt away from everything.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Don't feel guilty about being sick. No one's made you be sick. It's not your fault. There's something that's triggered it and it's not your fault. You don't have to feel guilty about it, but you do have to work to recover, to get better. It's not just going to happen. You can't just wait for a silver bullet to cure the chronic fatigue. There's no magic pill. You've got to do some work. You've got to be the change.
These 2 cards are on my... I've got a big pile of cards for people who can't see the video, but I've got a big pile of cards, 60 quote cards that our members get when they're inside our program. But 2 that came up on the top of the list. 1, invest in yourself. You quit the things that weren't helping. You invested in all the things that did help, and you invested in yourself every single day. I saw your commitment. I watched it, and I still see it now. You know what I mean? Like, you're just committed to a healthy lifestyle, and that's just amazing.
Yeah.
And then the other one is focus on what you want. I think that's kind of what you're speaking to here, is really just focusing on what you want and not focusing on what you don't want. And people always go, I just need to focus on getting rid of this symptom, and then I need to focus on this symptom. And I say, no, you don't need to focus on the symptoms. You need to focus on getting healthy. Because when you get healthy, your symptoms start to decrease. And so it's a deeper approach.
Yeah, and I really felt that one too when you said focus on recovery, not symptoms. And I would be journaling my symptoms, thinking about them, worrying about them. But when you stop doing that, it makes a difference. When you just think about what you've got to do to recover, not what you're feeling, it makes a difference. And it's like a load off your shoulders, really. You can kind of take a big step forward after you accept that. And just going back to that previous question, I think people need to put their health as their number one priority. I did that, and I guess I was fortunate to be in a position to do that financially and with support of family. People have to work, but if you can make your health your number one priority, focus on that, not focus on work and whether you're being present to friends or not. Focus on yourself, not stuff that's going to make you feel worse.
Yeah, and even if you have to work or you don't have the flexibility all the time, just find the moments where you can put yourself first. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And, just focus on what you can control. At the end of the day, that's all you can do. There's a lot of people out here who are listening to this, watching this, and, they're wondering if the program is going to work for them. Like, can they trust it? Is it the right thing? Some people are even skeptical. What would you say to those people who are in the program right now or are thinking about joining the program?
I would say the program works. Listen to the learnings, take it all on board, do the work, you can recover. Be committed to yourself. It can happen. And I was skeptical a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago, but do the work and it will happen.
Dude, we're going to leave it there. Nothing more powerful could be said right there. Do the work and make it happen. I love it. You're speaking my language. Job, thank you on behalf of everyone at CFS Health, the members of the team, and all the extended community. Just thank you so much for sharing your journey and your insights. It's been so helpful and powerful.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. I hope what I've been through can help others and people can learn from what I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Thanks heaps, man. We'll stay in touch. Speak to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Dude. Thanks heaps.